Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cilia Li Show. It's your girl, Celia. This week is part two of last week's episode with Whitney Jones, where we talk about period, everything period, and about your womb, the power of connecting with your womb. Now, this week we come back and we talk about masturbation, we talk about menopause, and other stuff. So yeah, make sure you listen to the end because Whitney has given you a gift at the end. Anyway, please do me a favor if you haven't already. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's the way to show me love and support, and it will help me reach more people and grow my channel. And also, of course, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever it is, please give me a follow and give me a 5-star rating. All right, let's get back into the episode. So, ever since you started this journey of like really celebrating the bleeding and things like that, what have you noticed that has what changes have you noticed in your life, your body,
Mhm.
mind, soul?
Yeah, it just has opened up a sense of self love that I could have never imagined for myself, a sense of grounding into who I am, a sense of safety within myself, and
Mm,
my authentic expression has come out as a result. I just feel like once you start to descend into your womb, it sort of starts to unfurl who and what you are. And you feel like, okay, it's time to express, it's time to create, it's time to move in the ways of my womb. And your womb is all those things. It's really the powerhouse of our femininity, is our womb.
mm,
So once you start to intentionally connect with that area, all those things, it's like a rose opening. It just starts to open and blossom. And yeah, it will lead you down all sorts of paths. And it also supports authentic expression in your life and alignment, you know?
when people ask me how do I embrace my femininity or
Mm,
embrace my feminine energy, I said one of the ways is honoring and embracing my menstrual cycle. The fact that I sync my life, or I try to sync my daily life, but definitely my workout and my nutrition
mhm.
with my cycle is one of my ways of embracing my feminine energy and not demonizing it,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
So
And
yeah.
because that is something that is so intricately feminine. Like we are literally rotating in a cycle every month, every however many days, everyone's different. But and when you come into tune with that, and though that cycle sort of mirrors Mother Nature, which is in and of itself a
Mm,
feminine energy. So you get to sort of cycle the way that nature intended it, which is very different than
hmm.
a male who doesn't have those cycles, who is more on a linear path. Women more are on a fluctuating path.
Yeah.
And to honor that path is to honor your femininity. Mhm.
Mm. Going back again to
Mhm.
menstruate, when we menstruate, so like going back about the food. So I also incorporate a bit of
Mm.
Chinese medicine into it. So according to Chinese medicine, when you menstruate, so obviously
Mhm.
we because we're shedding, we're losing blood, we're actually really weak, and like you
Mhm.
said, it's our inner winter. And so they tell us not to eat anything that's cold or drink anything that's cold, that's cooling for the body, and not necessarily cold as in temperature. It could also be translation literally something that's really
Mhm.
that's alkaline based. I don't know the exact word, but that's the closest way to describe it. So let's say, for example, um, if you're menstruating, you should avoid eating things like watermelon because that is very cooling for the body. Even if it's not straight from the fridge, it's been out in the room temperature, but that food itself is
Mhm.
high in alkaline, that's the way to describe it. So
Mhm.
it's not good for the womb. So when I'm on my periods, I always make sure I have like ginger tea because ginger is
Mhm.
warming for the body, and I don't drink. I don't just drink. I don't drink any tea. There's certain type of tea that again I don't drink. I don't drink when I'm menstruating because it's quite
Mhm.
cooling for the body. So even though it's hot in temperature, but it's just again it's like there's some like
Mhm.
alkaline acidic type of teas. Anyway, and then I would never eat salad during that time because it's cold. Always make sure something that's warm. I
Mhm.
eat something that's warm. And
Yeah, I
what do you
agree
think
with
of that?
that. And you're saying Chinese medicine, also Ayurvedic, they have the same principles with cooling and warming, and it's the same sort of thing. But yeah, your body seeks warmth at that time because it is shedding and because it is going through a process of releasing, and it is weakened because you're bleeding. So even keeping your body like
Mm,
internally warm and also externally warm. So making sure that you feel warm, that you have, socks on your feet, that your feet aren't cold, that your body's nice and warm, that you're wearing comfy, sweats or whatever, depending on where you live, to keep yourself nice and warm. You're cuddled up in a blanket, because when you feel cold, you feel, more vulnerable, more, insecure, because, when you want to feel safe, you want to be warm. You want to be warm so that your body can relax and you can have that shedding happen very peacefully and very calmly, which is why also they say, if you are having cramps or you are having womb issues, to put a warm heating pad on your womb so that it will relax those
Mm.
muscles, or your body will relax and the blood can flow through, calmly. Hmm.
Mm. And also because, like you said, this is the most vulnerable time, we need to keep warm. That's why we
Exactly.
like cuddles. That's why
Yeah.
we comfort in, and that's a time to show ourselves some self love. And literally, it could be even just
Mhm.
hugging yourself. And if you don't have a man or a partner, then you have to show it to yourself and be compassionate with yourself
Exactly,
during this
exactly.
time.
Yeah, it's about providing
Yeah.
comfort and safety and warmth, so that you're in a vulnerable
Mm.
position, so that your body can feel safe and calm to release that blood and to, recalibrate following that. Mhm. Yep.
Mm. So now earlier you mentioned
Yeah.
about the massages,
Yep.
yeah, on the womb area, and mentioned going down
Mhm.
to the vulva area. So, and I also see you sell
Yes, I do.
Yoni ones, self pleasure. So, what is? No, sorry, no. What is? Why is self pleasure important?
Self-pleasure is so important, because when you engage in self-pleasure and you learn your body and your unique yoni map and your unique pleasure zones, you can come from an empowered place and decide if you want to share that with others. If you do not know your own pleasure zones, and you're not coming from that place of, hey, I know my body, I know what works for me, I know what is suitable and what is not, then you are at the whim of what your partner knows. And that may be a lot, that may be a little. It could be a lot, but it might not be right for you. So it's just about grounding into who you are, what works for you, and really empowering women to say, like, hey, this is my body. This is what works for me. This is what's acceptable for me. And this is, the standard. Because as women, usually, generally, we have been taught our body is for others. We're here to make babies. We're here to be pleasure for our partners. Historically, that's been men. Um, and we're just sort of
Mm.
like on a whim. We never got to really learn, historically, what works for us and what doesn't. And now we're at a time where we can learn all sorts of things. And the crystal yoni wands I love so much, because they're a natural product. They're from the earth. And yeah, they give a really grounding sensation and feeling when you use them. And you can explore yourself as you see fit. And I will say, besides the yoni wands, using your hands first and foremost is the best place to start, before any tool, is using your hands, using your fingers, so that you can get to learn the
Mm.
intricate, beautiful, luscious entity that is your yoni. And it's like a cave
Mm.
that is just being wanting all your life to be explored.
Yeah, like I said to people, like, so before I started like my spiritual
Mhm.
journey, my self love journey, literally, I
Mhm.
didn't enjoy sex. I'd only had sex because my partner
Mhm.
at the time wanted to do it, and I was just, "Oh, I'll just get it
Mhm.
over and done with." I never enjoyed it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do feel
Mhm.
the pleasure sometimes, but the thought of doing it sometimes just like, "Oh, just get over and done with." Like, come on, I'm
Mhm.
tired, whatever, thing like that. And after leaving that relationship, when we say when you leave a relationship, you
Mhm.
start to learn more about yourself, and then I started to be really exploring myself, and it all come from self pleasure. And I learned that if you don't know
Mhm.
what you like, how can you tell your partner what you like? And let's just say, because I know some women also like are scared to tell their partner or the man they're dating, like, yeah, but what if it hurts their ego? Because it might hurt their pride. No, you can. There's a way to tell them
Mhm.
what you like and what you don't like. And I always like guiding. If a guy when a guy pleasures me and he does things that doesn't do anything to me, I actually tell him. I even use my hand, like
Mhm.
move his hand
Mhm.
do it
Mhm,
here, or go gentle, or go softer, or do this, and like it's, I think it's a communication. Like it's also increases
mhm,
the intimacy, creates that bond, and so yeah, like self pleasure for me is important because like you said, which part
mhm.
is sensitive for you because everyone's different.
Yes,
Everyone's
yes.
different, right? I believe, and when you know what you want, what you like, that's where the confidence come in as well, and you have better sex
Ooh, the
life as
sex life
well.
can only improve when you know yourself. You can, as you said, the most
Mm,
important thing is you know yourself, and then you can feel empowered to express what works for you. And most partners, if they are caring about you in a meaningful way, they want you to feel pleasure. They don't
mm. Pleasure is your
exactly.
birthright.
Pleasure is your birthright, and
You
you
know?
are the best advocate for your own pleasure, of course. And if you don't know
Mm,
what is pleasure for you specifically, how could you possibly expect someone to be able to give that to you? That's very challenging. So it all
yeah.
starts with you. It all starts
Okay.
with you exploring your body, and it's so empowering as a woman to be able to explore your body and to have the freedom to do that, and to have, all these tools to do that. Um, and to create, and then it also creates a sense of safety for you because you feel like, okay, I know who I am. I am empowered in my body to be able to use my voice or different things, you like you said, like moving hands and whatever, to express myself and share with a partner what works for me to have a more pleasurable experience for myself and them as well.
Yeah, and I think also sometimes, to be honest, I think some men or your partner,
Thank you.
they like it when they've been told
Mhm.
what to do,
Because
things
think
like
of the
that.
pressure of a partner if you are with a woman and you don't have that anatomy, or even if you do, like everyone's different. So how it's a lot of pressure for you to now be fully responsible for this pleasure experience, just you as the partner. It's much more balanced if it's
Mm,
collaborative, if both people can say, like, okay, this is what I like. Can you do this? Do you feel comfortable? It opens up the gates of communication and intimacy, like you said. And then the pressure is off one
mhm,
individual to carry the weight of this experience. Now it's a collaboration. Now it's you
yeah,
two as partners.
yeah, and I know, like we often hear women pretend that they're enjoying it, and things like, stop pretending, just tell them what you want, be
Exactly. And
true
that
to
starts with knowing
yourself.
what you want. That's the fundamental part that you have to know what you want.
Mm.
So exploration is the best way for that.
Yeah, I actually do have
Oh,
some
good.
questions from other
Mhm.
people. Ever since you started doing this, sort of celebrating your menstrual cycle, have you encountered any resistance, any challenges from other people?
Yeah, because there is still a lot of stigma and taboo around menstruation, and especially the lengths that I take it to can be, outside of societal norms. So, of course, people are always going to have their opinions. And I do get a lot of negative feedback. Not a lot, but I do get negative feedback. I'm very lucky that the community that I've created online is so supportive and so loving and kind. So I love them so much. But mostly from external people, even family members, things like that. They do have to say, like, oh, that's, gross, or what are you doing? Or that's disgusting, or, this is crazy, things like that I get. But once, for me, I feel so grounded in this lifestyle that it overrides what anyone could possibly say. It doesn't really influence me. And I also have empathy because I used to be that person. I used to be the person who was like, "Oh,
Mm,
menstruation, like it's gross." It's like I was taught that too. So I do have empathy, and I am so glad to see so many women rising now into this space of loving their wombs and being curious about their wombs and menstruation and their blood and how their body works. So yeah, I do get resistance, but I send them love. That's what I do.
going back to Yoni one. So, what do you think of vibrators?
Oh, this is going to be probably a controversial one.
We like
um,
it.
personally, I'm not a fan of vibrators because
Mm,
it has been proven that they do reduce the sensitivity of your
Yeah, they numb
Yeah,
you,
they can
numb
numb
the
you.
sensory, right? Yeah.
And it is a very mechanical way to get pleasure. Like it doesn't mimic anything that you would get naturally, because it's a machine. So there, I just feel like for vibrators, it's a very quick pleasure peak and then back down. Where a woman's body has the capacity for
Hmm.
so much pleasure, more pleasure than most people can even imagine. And to be able to explore that is more of a slow process, is more of an intentional process. It's more of an exploratory process. And for me, the vibrator does not really allow for that. It's much more of like a quick thing and then it's sort of over. It's like a quick fix for an orgasm. Where I'm more about
Mm.
pleasure and the whole, exploring your yoni.
Mm.
Yeah.
Experience.
And of course we want it to be as like there are many women who are having sex and their yonis are numb, like they haven't, the sensitivity has gone away, and that can all be healed, but it only exacerbates the issue with things like vibrators. So I'm much more a proponent of, using your hands, using a crystal yoni wand. There are like glass wands that you can get as well. There's many other non-vibrating tools that you can use that really support how the yoni works and are more natural for exploring pleasure.
Yeah. You know what? You know how you said that it doesn't actually
Yeah.
imitate the actual experience, and it's true because so I don't have one. I've never had one, but I remember when I was in this 9-year relationship, my partner at the
Mhm.
time he bought one for me, and obviously use it when we
Mhm.
were intimate. But it never did anything for me. I never understood the hype when eventually when he because he's the first person to ever get me one,
Mhm.
and that's the first time I ever used it. I didn't understand the hype because when he put it inside of me, I was like, okay, it's vibrating, but I'm not
Mhm.
feeling the pleasure. I don't understand. I don't know what you. At the time, I was thinking, is it because it's not powerful enough, or is it
Mhm.
something wrong with me? But I just never
Mhm.
enjoyed using it. And I never used it when I was alone. It was only when it was with him. He wanted to use it. So again, you see, I was just like pleasing him
Mhm.
because he wanted to use it. Um, uh, but yeah, but I've lost my thought. Yeah. Anyway, so now going to the back to the Yoni one. So okay, let's say if someone has been using
Mhm.
the vibrator for years, and obviously some of them might be just up in the speed or
Yes.
whatever, the power. Now if they want now they heard maybe they just listened to his
Mhm.
podcast and now they want to stop using it because they realize they
Mhm.
actually have gone numb. How can they
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
reverse
totally
that?
possible to reverse it. The yoni, the vulva, the vagina, that whole space is so resilient, and it can always come back to equilibrium. It just needs the time and the space. So if you have been using a vibrator and you do feel that your sensitivity has decreased, it will take time. It will take time for your yoni to come back to being sensitive and, being able to experience the subtle feelings of a non-vibrating tool. So just exploring, taking time, being gentle, exploring with either your hand or a wand, and just starting to learn the subtle feelings of your vagina. Inside your vagina on the upper wall, there are so many nerves. It's a complete pleasure zone up there. Even just feeling the top roof of your vagina with your finger, you can feel all sorts of nerves up there. Just starting to feel and
Mm.
starting to relax into that space like we talked about before, relaxing your vagina muscles, your pelvic floor, starting to relax into the experience. Because another thing with vibrators is you're vibrating, so you get very tense. Everything's very tense. You're just vibrating and everything's very
Mm.
tense. And when you relax into pleasure, it's a whole different experience. So just having the space for your body to do that. And maybe it takes time, and maybe it takes, more time than to climax than it would have with a vibrator, but just giving yourself that space and
Mm.
giving yourself that exploratory season to figure out what is my pleasure zone without a vibrating tool, because it might be different. It's probably different, than you were when you were using a vibrator. And
Mm.
there's so much in there to explore, outside in the vulva, inside in the vagina, on the walls. It's just a whole treasure trove.
And a vagina has, is it
Yes,
8,000
at least.
nerves?
Mhm.
Yeah. I was like,
Exactly.
wow.
So imagine that, and then imagine just taking a toy and just drrrr all the time. Like, that's overstimulating for something so sensitive. So sensitive.
That's your little girl.
Exactly. You
Gotta
gotta
take
take care
care
of her, you
of
gotta
it.
be gentle, soft, and then she'll just open up like the
Mm.
most beautiful flower to all sorts of pleasure, all sorts of different orgasms you can achieve. Like, it's endless. Mhm.
Mm. So I know this is
Mhm.
I'm going back and forth, but now going back to womb connection
Mhm.
because something just came to my mind. Um, the
Mhm.
conceptive pills,
Mhm.
birth control pills. That's What's your opinion on that? Because for me, had I known all this stuff about it now, well, if I know all this stuff about all this stuff about it
Mhm.
when I was younger, I would have
Yeah.
never gone on it because as also it's you disconnected
Yeah.
from your womb. What is your opinion
Yeah, I
on birth
mean,
control?
it's a difficult thing because I mean, it has helped women in a lot of ways, some women in a lot of ways.
Mm,
But my issue with it is that we're just not told the full story usually. It's usually like we go to the doctors for, could be a plethora of issues, and the doctor's response is take this birth control. And like you said, they don't share with you the ramifications of doing so. They usually don't even share with you what it's actually doing to your body, that is preventing ovulation, which is a significant event for
mhm.
women in their menstrual cycle, not only just to create children but for our hormonal balance of our body. um,
Detox, isn't it? It's like
yeah, so
detoxing. Your body's
it's a lot
detoxing.
of things that they just don't share.
Uh,
And that's the real issue, is that we're
Mm.
not getting informed consent. We're just getting, here, take this. It's going to solve all your womb issues. And so many women and girls take it, and then they're just not informed with what's going on with their bodies and how it could potentially impact them, in the short term and the long term. So that's the issue really with birth control. But I say each to their own. If some women, they want to take that, that's totally fine, obviously. And it's just about knowing your options and knowing what is happening with your body. And there are natural ways also to prevent
Mm.
pregnancy if that's what someone's trying to achieve. You can do the fertility awareness method, which is tracking your cycle. Um, so that can lead you to, a
Mhm.
deeper connection with your body and your womb. And it's natural. You don't have to take anything. But I know people take birth control for a plethora of issues. So it's just about knowing what it's doing and knowing how it affects you.
So, if let's say if someone is working,
Mhm.
office job, how can they? 'Cause obviously, like you said, when you work in a corporate world, for example, they don't really care
Mhm.
about whether you're on your period. What can
Yeah,
they
so
do?
it's challenging because the world is set up for capitalism and for patriarchy, and
Mm.
those two things don't really factor in the natural rhythm of a woman's body. So to be in the corporate world, if you feel like your employer is open and you feel safe enough, you can tell. Like, there are women I know who have told their employer, like, when I am menstruating, I'm going to need to take time off. I need to be with, my body for whatever various reasons. And their employers receptive to that. That's not the case for everybody. And if you can't do that, just setting up more space in your life to be able to rest outside of your job. So instead of going straight from your job to all these different tasks, maybe just setting up more space to have rest outside of work. So going home after, having a nutrition, you can plan. So before you bleed, cooking food, maybe putting it in the freezer, maybe nice soups, nice warming things, so that you have, good nutrition throughout your menstruation. Supporting yourself in whatever way you can, as you bleed, is really important. So if you can't have that space to really rest and really stay home and be with yourself, which is the case for so many women, just setting up space in your life where maybe instead of going home and just, watching TV or doing other things, you take time to set some time in your day to just journal and express your feelings and have a nice cup of tea by yourself, and creating little pockets of time like that, throughout your cycle.
Someone asked, "What is your personal and collective vision for your period spiritual
Ooh,
practice?"
my personal vision and collective vision. My personal vision, I feel like I'm living my personal vision right now. I'm so in sync with my body. I'm in love with my womb. I feel like she's in love with me. Yeah, my personal vision has been to be connected with her and to have her as like an oracle to lead my spiritual
Mm,
journey, and that's what's happening. And it's so nice, and I wish
mm,
that for all women. There's so much power and so much healing in connecting with your womb and learning her voice. That's what I wish for all women. So yeah, that would be my
mm.
collective vision as well, and just to come into harmony with our wombs, to come into harmony with our menstrual cycle, and to not battle against it. To accept that as a part
Yeah,
of who we are and release the shame, and to replace that with healing, which takes time, but it's totally possible, and it's so empowering to feel that it's a natural part of who you are. It's not something to hide in shame. It's something to celebrate, because that means that you are a life creating being. You can create life. What is more powerful? You can create life from
mm,
scratch. That's what your menstrual cycle signals.
yeah. What would you say to a woman who no longer menstruates now? She's basically in menopause, but she only just
Hmm.
discovered about this now.
Yeah,
What would you say
I've
to
met a
her?
lot of women like that, and I
Mm,
say I offer them gratitude, because they led the charge. They were here functioning the way that they did best, and they led the charge for us, and to exist and to explore the way we're doing now. So I definitely offer them gratitude, and there are still ways that you can connect with your womb after menopause. Your womb is still very much a source of wisdom, and during that time, that's a time of just such beauty as well. Like the phases of being a woman are all so beautiful. So there is still an opportunity there to connect with your womb, to get to know yourself from that space. And you can still cycle, you can still even practice cycle awareness with the moon, because the moon reflects our cycle. So if you're not bleeding,
mm-hmm.
you can follow the
Yeah.
cycle of the moon instead.
Has your um, cycle
Yes,
synced with the
she
moon?
has synced with the moon, but it sometimes it fluctuates. But I usually will bleed with the full moon, and then I ovulate with the new moon. And last year was different. So yeah, it's
Mm,
interesting. I always like to follow and see where she goes, and for women, I encourage that as well. And that's another benefit of cycle awareness, is to get to see how you are synced up with the moon, with nature, things like that. It's just so fascinating. There's just so much there to learn and explore. Hmm.
yeah. For me, it's become really interesting. So ever since I've become more in touch with myself, and spiritually, and also really celebrating my menstrual cycle, I am syncing with the moon when it's in my sun sign. So I'm a Libra. Whenever the moon is in Libra, doesn't matter if it's full moon, new moon, just as
Hmm.
whenever it's in Libra, that's when I come on. So I used to like track it. So I was tracking, and then
Hmm.
afterwards, and now I just stopped tracking it. But what I do now is just put in my calendar when the moon is going to be in Libra, and I just know it's going to come on. So for example, last week Sunday, the moon was in Libra, and I was thinking, okay, I wonder if I'm going to come on this time, um, if it's going to be like clockwork, because it's been happening over a year now. And then I came on, I was like, oh my god, it's like clockwork. And I was like, and then for me, the message I interpret it as, the message I got is that you don't need um apps, sort of these man-made stuff to help you track. No, I mean nothing wrong with them. Obviously, they're still useful, but I'm saying it's almost like my body's telling me you don't need these apps to tell you when you're going to come on.
Exactly.
Because you're just going to follow the
I
moon.
love that. And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, see, you see how you just got that all from your menstrual cycle? There's so much there to learn. There's so much there for us
Mm,
to learn about ourselves. If we give ourselves space and start to tune in, there's so much to learn. And it's so unique for every individual. It's just the beauty of womb connection. It's so lovely. Yeah.
mm.
And it changes. Like, it's sometimes it can change, it can flow. Like, it's just the most mysterious path, and in the most beautiful path. Hmm.
Yeah. And also what I realized when I knew I was really synced with it, because so I use what's it called? Is it My Flow? Basically,
Mhm.
Alice's Vitti's app where you can track it, and it was telling me, okay, you'll come on this day, and I was thinking, and then
Mhm.
when I didn't sync with that app, I was like, oh my god, I'm like a week early. But then I checked the
Mhm.
moon. I was like, no, I'm not a week early. I'm not. No, I'm on time. I'm not a week early. I'm on time because I'm synced with the
Exactly.
moon.
And
And
those maps,
yeah,
those
so
apps
I thought that
and
was.
different things, they can be really useful. But they are based on like an algorithm that they have put in that they think mimics women's bodies. And that can never
Mm,
override your experience with your body. Your experience with your body should supersede everything. So I agree fully. The apps
mm,
can be useful, they can be really good as a supportive tool, but it should be you and your body
hmm.
flowing together.
Before we wrap up, what tips do you have for women
Yeah.
who do menstruate and
Well,
new to this?
firstly, I would give the tip of maybe considering not using toxic menstrual care products anymore. So a lot of women are still using, tampons, regular tampons or pads or even some cups and stuff like that. You have to really be careful and mindful of the material that you're putting into your vagina and on your vulva. It's a very sensitive area. It's equivalent to the inside of your mouth. It's very receptive. So definitely
Mm,
considering turning to more organic methods for, managing your menstrual phase. That's a big one. And there's so many options now that you can explore. There's the period underwear, there's organic tampons, there's organic pads, there's cups and discs that are made from more friendly materials, friendly to our body, organic materials. So that's number one because that'll really help the health of your womb and your vagina. We don't want to be putting stuff that's toxic in such a sensitive area. So that's first and foremost, and then creating some space to learn to connect with your womb, especially if you feel like you are disconnected. Maybe creating just some space, maybe even once a week or more if you can, to just sit in silence and put your hands over your womb and just feel into the power that
mm,
exists within you. Because it is powerful to be a menstruating woman. It's very powerful. You can create life, you can use that creative energy in your life. It's a beautiful thing. And we've been sort of indoctrinated and taught otherwise, but it's time to reclaim our power and it's time to step into our power and know that, hey, I am a bleeding woman. My blood is not shameful. And I'm here to advocate for myself and say, like, hey, if I need space, if I need time, if I want to express myself, all these things are part of, being a woman. And they're beautiful. And we should accept them and celebrate them.
I love that. Okay, and then one more thing is, what if someone goes, "Yeah, but Whitney, it's easy for you to say that. You don't have period pain. Do you understand that I actually
Mhm.
can't move when I come on?" What do you say to them? Like, how can they start their journey when they are experiencing that? Because it's hard for someone when they
It is
are in
hard,
so much
yeah.
pain.
And I do have experience with that, so I fully empathize and relate. And I would say it is difficult, obviously, if the area of the body that we're talking about is causing you extraordinary pain, and managing that pain should be, primary to the discussion and managing symptoms. So that's one thing. I'm absolutely for Western medicine to a certain extent, that can help with things like that. But also, your womb is more than likely trying to communicate something to you, trying to communicate that something might be off, that something might need to be looked at, that something might have been suppressed in your life, that you need to turn inwards and start to deal with. And that's something that is your own path and your own
Mm,
journey. And there's no medicine in the world that can start that path for you and that can start that level of introspection for you.
yeah.
So I fully understand, and it is hard, but it's an opportunity for growth and for learning within yourself, to turn to yourself and say, I wonder, where could this be coming from? Starting to maybe look in your past, starting to maybe look into ways you're living now, the ways you're eating, the ways you're functioning. It can be simple as partnerships, jobs, past trauma, relationships. It can be all that, and it is stored in our body, and it usually lands in the womb. It lands in our pelvis. So yeah, it's an opportunity for exploration.
So you have also been very kind and offered
Mhm.
something for my listeners. Do you want to share what it is that I've got? We got a gift. We just
Yeah,
got a
I'm very
gift for you
excited
guys,
to
basically.
share 50% off my Etsy store where I have digital downloads. I create Yoni art, that's available, and I also have a womb healing and feminine reclamation guidebook that is available for digital download. So those will be 50% off with the code podcast. So you can put that in on Etsy and have fun downloading. And if you do purchase any of those things, please tag me so that I can see um, the artwork in your home or your space or the guidebook. Let me know, your experience with it. I would love to connect with you guys.
All the details will be in the description. But remind people,
Yes,
what is
it
your
is at
Instagram handle?
Sacred Womb Connection on all platforms.
Thank you so much for coming. You actually dropped so much gems. I even learned so much from you as well. Um, definitely one of my and one of my favorite episodes as well, because it's one of my favorite topics that I like to talk about. Because again, I think I just like debunking myths and
Yeah, I
taboos and
love
stuff
it.
like that. So
Thank you
yeah.
for having me on. I really loved it.
All right, guys. So thank you so much for listening or watching if you're watching this. And you know the drill. Please show me love, like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you at the next episode.